Okay, welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for your attendance in our first session with Kevin. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Matt McQueen, who is our Vice President for Product Design and User Experience. And he's going to go ahead now and provide some detail around the investments and work we've been doing on platform and within technology and data.
Okay, hey, welcome to the platform update part of the publisher and contributor meeting for 2020. My name is Matt McQueen. I'm the Vice President of Product and Design at JSTOR. We're excited to share with you some of the enhancements that we've been making to the platform, and wanted to share with you a little bit about our strategy and the types of things that we're changing and improving on the platform. So just getting started, I wanted to share our strategic objectives. So in product and in product strategy, three big things that we're working on. That institutions can see JSTOR as a valuable platform where they can publish their special collections, right? That's a big part of what you'll hear about today and why we're excited about more content on the platform leading to more usage. We want to see usage and engagement increase on JSTOR across all content types. So books, journals, images, primary sources. Our fortunes rise and fall with usage, so we're always improving that. And then the third point is enabling data-driven decision-making for our partners and stakeholders. So everyone can be sort of eyes wide open about the improvements that we're able to make and how to make our products and content better through the insights that we can gain from it. That sort of ladders up into the most important thing is that we're always enhancing JSTOR's aggregate platform value, no matter who you are, a content contributor, a librarian, or a scholar. You're finding value on JSTOR, and we've created this virtuous cycle of content and usage. One of the main things that we're excited about is improving search and discovery. So that's, JSTOR sort of begins and ends for a lot of people with the search user experience and the relevance. So the sort of first point here is we want easier, faster, and improved results in targeted scenarios, which pave the way for improved experience across content types. So we've got sort of a multi-content type search. And what the search team is coming in every day and thinking about is like better, faster, more relevant results. And now increasingly across different content types. So it's starting out with books and journals, now primary sources and images as well are all a part of the search experience. In Q3, we made significant technology improvements to drive faster search. And this is really a foundation for our platform to be able to offer more sophisticated ways to improve the product now and in the future. We do things with machine learning, which is like, using AI to basically the types of people that search for this also click on these things, improving our relevance engine, and doing a lot of things with A/B testing. So we are able to run a control group and an experimental group and try different things to see if we can improve the relevance or improve the speed. And then just having that little platform for constant iterative improvement with A/B testing allows us to constantly be trading up to something that's faster or better, and we have a mechanism to do that. So this transition period where we went from sort of our old or regular search platform to this new technology improved the speed, just the speed of returning results 20 to 30% faster. So there's also just this, does it work? Can you get results faster? That results in better improvements for the platform and better user experience for people that are doing searches. So this is a great sort of technology underlying improvement that it helps now, but also helps pave the way for the types of constant search improvements that we're doing on JSTOR. I can tell you a little bit more about some of these. So it's easier for users to paste text and get expected results. So we've done work where a lot of students will take a phrase or something from a syllabus, put it into JSTOR, and we've made it easier for ignoring things like punctuation or quote marks or spelling. And we reduced instances of zero results by 30% just with this. So if you can imagine, that's a significant increase for things that students just expect to be able to do with copy and paste. That's very sort of internet behavior. We've increased the views within our top 5 results, which tells us our relevance improvements are working. And image search relevance improved up 10%. We did this with improving the metadata and how we show the metadata around images and relevance logic. And not surprisingly, when you show an image with metadata, it tends to provide more context to the user. And we saw 75% lift in just changing and improving the way we display metadata under an image in search results. It's not just images that have seen improvements. We've also done great improvements to text content in the searching. We've increased the item text views by 4% relative to a baseline. Downloads from PDFs are up 2.5%. And other interactions that we have, like to be able to cite an item or save an item on JSTOR to your workspace, are up 5%. So this tells us types of changes we're making are resulting in more usage. We talked about the underlying technology engine to improve relevance, and that's up 10%. And then Google is crawling all our open community collections that have been coming onto the platform. So that creates a nice cycle of discovery, search engine optimization, where more Google traffic coming into JSTOR sort of floats all boats. And then we added a browse collection page, and that had further layout experiments. We'll boost usage further on that. That's the ability for users to come in and sort of see the types of content that's available without doing a targeted search. So those types of pages do really well with Google indexing and search engines. So we've invested there as well. Other things that we've been doing are about reducing barriers to access. So, I mean, obviously, back when the pandemic started and universities went remote very quickly, we saw physical libraries remained closed and remote access for students became the norm back in March, April of 2020. And so we realized there's a lot more we could do to lower the barriers for people to get authenticated and authorized to use JSTOR, because they're not going to be in their physical library. In fact, they're not even really often on campus at all. So we did something with our institution pairing, where we can pair institutions to individual accounts, and expanded our access related programs to students there. This is just making it easier and simpler for students to affiliate with their institution. This resulted in easier remote access and reduced login confusion. We saw our numbers go up there, and we extended this browser pairing through the end of 2020, which basically says you do not need to have gone back and sort of stepped on campus or be re-authenticated in your campus network, especially if you're taking that class from wherever you may be in the country or the world. And our next step is to improve our remote login with the institution finder page. So this is, we have UI experiments and optimization we can do around people finding their institution. We've just begun to make those improvements, and I'm sure we'll see gains from that. And then in October, we're starting a sign-on pilot with Google single sign-on. So for universities that are using this system, it's going to be even faster and easier for users to authenticate through JSTOR, through single sign-on, if this pilot is successful, and I think we'll learn a lot from it. Another thing that we're doing is making better decisions with data. So what you can see here on the left is this idea of a contributor dashboard. So you can see what are the item requests, where are people coming from, and what are the sort of most used items. We want to, our community collections contributors that are sort of publishing their special collections to JSTOR, they can assess the impact of what they've published to JSTOR and see if there's new types of collections that they would want to host. So when someone sort of joins the platform and publishes their content on JSTOR, we want them to be able to see the impact that has, and let them see where people are coming from and what they're using. In other reporting, we launched new books reporting in March. 30% or 31% of our books publishers have used it, and it now includes open access usage. And then for journal publishing reporting, revamped that and launched it in August. That gives publishers more insight into the reach of your content on JSTOR, what's being used, who's using it. We conducted a webinar for publisher statistics in September, which was last month, and 70 publishers attended that to learn more about it. The aggregate score of user satisfaction across both the books reporting and the journal reporting is 4.6 stars out of 5, and getting some good open-ended comments in there, but feeling good about this user experience. A little bit more about it here. You can sort of see that we offer the most requested usage is now available to publishers. It shows your global content reach and the value that you've provided to participants. We allow you to schedule date range options, whether you'd like to get this report one time or have it mailed out weekly, monthly, or quarterly, or custom dates, and how you want to export it. So yes, you could get this information before. It might have required an email or a phone call, but now this is sort of set up for self-service. So if you know you want to receive this information periodically, you can sort of set it and forget it. You don't have to keep coming back to JSTOR for it, but it's always there and available if you'd like to. And then sort of this last point, the metrics are aligned with Counter 5. So it's our industry standard for usage and reporting. And our goal is to make reporting and getting the statistics and usage information you want on JSTOR as frequent or infrequent as you'd like, and as painless as possible, to really just give you the power to get what you'd like with the lowest amount of friction to do so. We redesigned the EBA book selection process, which allowed us to streamline the workflow for librarians and JSTOR. This was really driven by an opportunity to what we call, we have an operational excellence team, which is always trying to figure out ways to make things simpler and easier for our customers, and data-driven improvements of how we take the renewals process, requests and process them. This made it much better, much faster, and much cheaper to complete this process, and got real positive feedback on the end-to-end user experience for librarians. You know, the types of spreadsheets that they're used to doing and having to make selections here really made that a lot simpler. We completed this process in much shorter time than we've ever done it, and received feedback from librarians that this was a significant improvement in the way that they could work with JSTOR for books renewal. So for publishers, just feeling like, hey, there's less friction in the system to be able to select what librarians need, and sort of everyone can, you know, rise from those benefits on the platform. We've been adding a lot of images and primary sources to the platform. Why? Well, scholars need more than books and journals for research. And this reduces fragmentation for the end user experience. You know, we've heard from librarians and scholars that if I can search in one place for the type of topic that I'm looking for, and I can see books, journals, primary source materials, it could be pamphlets, it could be maps, it could be images or artwork, all with the same sort of relevance, is really helpful for them. We've heard and seen faculty are increasingly teaching with primary source materials, even at the undergraduate level, and with freshmen and sophomore, helping them understand what a primary source is, how to use it, how to cite it. We've also observed that with increased virtual and remote learning, it makes an online catalog of well-searchable, underrepresented resources even more valuable. So people are able to find more types of deeper content on JSTOR through this initiative. And it increases the breadth of content, making JSTOR more of a discovery destination, meeting a wider range of research needs. And I think that the last point here is, we think that when libraries host their special collections on JSTOR, they increasingly see JSTOR as their platform. And when they see themselves on JSTOR and they see their content on JSTOR, they're more inclined to keep the content that they already have with JSTOR and even add licensed content. So it becomes a more valuable, more important resource for them as more content comes on. So some of the things that you see on the left here are just sort of a smattering of the types of content that we've seen come in through the primary source and community, open community collections initiative, which I'm sure is being detailed further in other sessions as well today. Looking at different content types, we've created landing pages and improved the searching capabilities to allow images to be discoverable on JSTOR. So this is an example of the Rhode Island School of Design, the collections that their special collections that they've published on JSTOR, and the way they're sort of displayed here looks very different from just the text search results. This ability to browse and sort of almost merchandise and market their brands allows for the integration of ArtStore collections on the JSTOR platform, and improves the ability for our special collections to be published on the JSTOR platform. So this, the community collections workflow allows institutions to be able to set up just a very simple landing page that contains their collection. So when our contributors see this, they think, oh, like, we added that collection. What other collections could we have and add? And that builds on itself. And we have we've started to see institutions that have seen the usage of their community collections on JSTOR increase, and then they are motivated and interested in improving the metadata for that collection or adding additional collections, which is really when you start to see that happen at a platform-wide. More and more content and more value coming to the JSTOR platform, where people are searching for all sorts of other things. And I'll sort of just take you through some of the user interface improvements, sort of rounding the bend towards being done here. The example of doing a search for the American Civil War, the types of things that you'd see for journals, books, and primary sources and images on the right. So of course you can do refinement of your results, but you can also sort of see here in the search results, you can pivot from all results to just see text or just see images or just browse the collections. So really going from one type of search to many different types of searches depending on what users are interested in. And we're measuring this constantly when we make a change. What happened, what went up, what went down, how will we manage, so we never are getting in the user's way of what they don't want, but providing them different avenues to learn more, much like they've been trained by Google to do so. And then if you were to click images, your ability to see just an all image view, and different ways to sort: thumbnail view, list view, etc. And then you can sort of see on the left the ability to browse this by different facets, right? Images being discoverable on JSTOR, we're experimenting with the where and how we put the images on the search results page. So you can sort of see at the top here, if you're searching for Bauhaus, there's ArtStore images related to your search, and you can view all, and then you can sort of begin to see books and journals as you move down. I talked about the community collections landing page. So, when this started, it was a handful of collections. It was a dozen, and now there's a couple hundred. So we're beginning to allow people to search within community collections or browse these lists, and you start to see, what's the contributing institution, how many items are there. And this is exciting for us because we're seeing a whole set of new different user behavior of people doing exploring and browsing, in addition to targeted searching that JSTOR is known for. So we want to be able to offer both and really put these collections up in a way that increases usage and connects to the licensed content that's on the platform already, building scholarship. So next, for the platform, we're going to continue to experiment with image presentation and relevance in search, and expand on our data-driven relevance. So we're never not experimenting with ways to improve search and relevance. We're reimagining the JSTOR workspace. So the JSTOR workspace, if you found a book or journal or primary source or image, it's a place you can add it to a folder. You can add other things in there. It's just a place where we see scholars start to assemble their content together for their research. And we want to make sure that teaching tools are available with primary sources, and image groups are used for teaching, particularly in art history, but also in social sciences and humanities, where you can sort of see these packages alongside books and journals of things that really bring that scholarship to light. And then we're going to continue to improve access, right? So we have a page on JSTOR called the Turnaway page, which is, if you have access, you go right through it. And if you don't, we'll tell you how to get access. But we're building on what we've learned in Q3 or Q4. We can completely improve and redesign this page just in the way I talked about Google single sign-on. So, access is a part of our mission. We want to offer more scholarship to more people. And make sure they're authenticated properly. But when I talked about this A/B testing, it's just the modus operandi of our product team. We're always testing something against something else and seeing what the data tells us. Getting user feedback both quantitatively through the data and qualitatively. We're interviewing librarians and scholars all the time with different designs and user experience that we have to make it better and improve it. And I think this focus on metrics is, it's always been here at JSTOR, but we now have technology that allows us to deploy more tests faster and just be monitoring all the time and trading up all the time when we can make an improvement. So that's a whirlwind tour of what's going on with the platform and our product design and user experience teams. And I look forward to hearing from you and thoughts and questions about some of the things that we're working on. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Matt. Really appreciate that. And hopefully you all find we were able to really address a lot of those key questions and that we talked about and saw from the first session. But before we get into our Q&A, and we already have several questions that have come in, we have a couple, or actually have one polling question we're going to go ahead and get started with for you. And that is, what platform work do you think is most valuable? Experimenting with image presentation, reimagining the JSTOR workspace, improving access, improving search results, improving topics and discovery across all content types. So while you're all filling that out, I wanted to kind of highlight a couple things that Matt had talked about in the presentation that I know, I may have talked to you about specifically, or you might have had some interaction within our content development and licensing team. And one is that Matt did mention the publisher usage webinar, and that was a link that we sent out to that within the September Publisher Digest. And I know that we have some of my colleagues in here that are going to try to post that in the Slack channel, the link to that, so you get a chance to see what Matt was referencing there. So we'll work on doing that. In addition, Matt had talked about reducing those barriers of access, and just wanted to highlight, I mean, that is such an important time, or such an important requirement that we're making some of those improvements in based on the increase that we saw with users going remote. And lastly, one of the things Matt had talked about was when libraries feel that it's their platform, we're feeling that that's going to help libraries within maintaining the licensed content that they have because of that commitment to the platform. And tomorrow, we're going to talk about what we see with attrition and opportunities, and so we'll be able to talk about that in a little more detail. So let's go ahead and see what the results are. Okay. So still kind of, Matt, I'm sure as you'll see around that access and discovery, which really kind of were some of the key things we saw when we talked about that with Kevin. But any comments you want to make on those results, Matt?
Well, I definitely agree with all of the above, but I'm especially excited in the relationship between the bottom two. So, how you improve search results in better discoverability, but I think we can do a lot more, and we're excited to do a lot more with improving topics and discovery and connecting all this content. We're assembling it. We need to do a better job of connecting it.
Great, thanks. So we have several questions here actually now that are starting to come up, and a couple of these are around accessibility. So we had, even in the beginning, Matt, we had a question come in on the survey, especially for ArtStore contributors around images, and they were asking about the accessibility initiatives that we have. And is the accessibility decisions we make when we do some of the development of that, are they in collaboration with a live experience with someone of low or no vision? I'll start with that question with you there.
Sure. Well, we are really excited to announce the improvements that we've made in accessibility this year. The question exactly as phrased, we do not have someone on staff that has a visual impairment to help us with this, but we've sort of went all in on the standards body that governs accessibility. And the way that is managed is through what's called WCAG. Some of you might be familiar with that. It stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So this is a body that across all of the web and scholarship, universities really, publishes guidelines. And we have a URL that specifically details all of the accessibility sort of standards that we're meeting. It's about.jstor.org/accessibility. And we have the document is called a VPAT, but essentially there's 3 levels: level A, level AA, and level AAA. And as you can imagine, year over year, things sort of move up to, something that is introduced first as AA is like, leading edge. Eventually comes down to AA and then single A. So we've been moving up there. So particularly with visual improvements and guidelines, we now have things on the site that allow users to zoom up to 200%, which is a part of the guideline of AA. Where we are now, we can resize text and adjust text spacing. We have made, now the site can be read by a screen reader and navigated without the use of a mouse. So the types of things that we're following as an organization mirror the movement of these WCAG guidelines. So there's a lot more detail there on the site if you'd like, but we're in a much better place than we were even 10 or 12 months ago with our accessibility compliance, and we're looking forward to trading up all the time.
Great, thanks, Matt. And I think as a follow-up to that, and maybe a little bit more detail, see how much you'll be able to answer this, or we can follow up. But how are you approaching ADA compliance in general? Can you support remediated PDFs if a publisher has them?
I do not have an exact answer to that question, so I need to look more into the details of the remediated PDFs. But we look at part of our mission, is to get the most content to the most people possible. So all the things that we're trying to do around this, we are sort of spiritually and product aligned to provide more accessible content with everything we have, and find ways, even with the content that's coming in through the community collections initiative that Kevin talked about earlier, to make that content compliant and accessible from the jump, from the time it hits the platform, so that we don't have to always feel like we're have a dragnet behind everything to make it more compliant.
Great, thank you. And any some of the questions that come in, or if we have any additional detail, again, we'll put some of those follow-up answers in the Slack channel. And we just did post as well more information on JSTOR's accessibility. There is a link where we put that information in there, and that was just put into the GoToMeeting chat channel for everybody as well. Okay, so Matt, the next question here, we're going to shift away from accessibility. And one of the questions somebody asked early on when you were talking about multiple content types was, are there plans to include newspapers at JSTOR? And what was interesting is that this was someone who was doing research in genealogy. So obviously being able to search across multiple content types would be really important. And a question came up about newspapers.
Mm-hmm. I think that we want all different kinds of content on the platform. So John, I'd say as a content guy, like, I'd be interested in your take on that as well. The more types of scholarship that we can connect with the books, the journals, and the images that we have are valuable. I'll also say that a cool thing about newspapers is that a lot of the things that are seen there as far as infographics or it's a combination of photography and text, those are the types of sources that are really rich and interesting for scholarship that we're excited about connecting.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of add on to that from what Matt said. I mean, even when you look at some of the collections that are in JSTOR now. Kevin showed on the earlier slide with SAWA, and many of the collections that were built in there included newspapers in areas within India. And you'll see as you research particular topics, you're able to come across multiple content types that really help support research. There's more that we can obviously do in the discoverability and the metadata around newspaper content that starts to come onto JSTOR. And that's something we'll make sure to keep you updated on as we make progress there.
John, it's probably worth mentioning also just with the newspapers, the South Asian Open Archive collection is a lot of newspapers. So this is probably our most used, one of our first, but also just tremendous, tremendous resource in the primary source area, the one that we really launched the program with. And a lot of early, historical newspapers and archives in the Indian women's rights movement and Indian scholarship. So that's a great example of those coming onto JSTOR.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Excellent. So this comes into kind of more specific question, and this is about how do libraries upload content to JSTOR Forum, thinking of special collections in particular and their different formats.
How do libraries upload their special collections to Forum? So right now, when you set up a Forum account, a library would, you essentially create, an administrator creates like the vocabulary, controlled vocabulary, the setup to harvest the metadata. And as the work is digitized and brought into Forum, it is then, relentlessly cataloged and improved to the point where when it's ready to be published, there's an opportunity to sort of publish this to JSTOR or other destinations. So it's something that the library usually works with a set of catalogers and administrators on, hey, we're going to set up a collection. We're thinking about publishing this to JSTOR. There's a whole sort of Forum software on onboarding team that we can share more information about if that's interesting.
Great, thank you, Matt. And again, within that Slack channel, if there's follow-up questions and more detail from some of the answers that Matt's giving here, please put those in there and we'll work with those to get answers for you there. Now, Matt, this is a question that came up. I'm not real clear on this. I'm hoping it is to you. I'm going to pose it and see how this goes for you. It is any chance of introducing search for text, including symbols as from text? TEX.
Not a standard I'm familiar with, but I'm sure we can talk to our technology teams and get back to you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how you. So we'll definitely. I posed back in. I wasn't positive on that. We'll explore that some more. Make sure within that Slack channel follow up, we'll put as much detailed information as we can. So thank you very much for posing that question. So another question, you got a couple of them that still left here, Matt. So this one is around usage statistics. So can usage statistics be extended to go further back in the past? Can they get access to their earlier usage content?
Probably. I think it might have to be like a manual pull, but the automation that we have, I'm not exactly sure at what point that starts. But if you're looking for usage in a specific time frame, reach out to us and I can have our reporting team look into that.
Great, and as you all know, you have, and we can post that in our Slack channel, some of the direct contact into our publisher communications to be able to set those up and guide you through making sure you can get to the usage data or really help support any customized requests that might come in. So we'll make sure we put that information in that Slack channel for all of you to be able to connect to the right people to get that information. Looks like we've been able to put some information in there for all of you about some more detail on community collections that Matt had talked about and the accessibility that I said within our general chat channel there for you. It looks like that covers most of the questions. Oh, there was one other question that came up. So right now we have publishers with images within their journals and books, such as like art and archaeology. And they're curious to see the images that they're providing are already available on JSTOR. Will they be searched in similar ways that you were showing how images were displayed in your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, I think this depends on the book and depends on the publisher. But in general, we want to make the images that are available as open and accessible to the researchers as possible. Sometimes there's technical reasons why this is a challenge, and sometimes there's actually copyright reasons. So if a piece of art is included in like an econ textbook to demonstrate a particular concept or a point in history, if we extract that image and share it out, the original rights holder is probably still the artwork, where it's owned by the artwork, not the textbook publisher. But in situations where the book is an art book or is a architecture book by for example, the Warhol Foundation, right? Like there's a different rights structure in place. So I think I love the question because it implies that those images are valuable in and of themselves outside of the context of the book or the journal, and I completely agree. I think technically and with copyright, we have to be careful of how we do that. But in general, I want you to know that we want to support that type of use case on the platform to the degree that it is possible, both technically and legally.
Great. Thanks, Matt. So before I'll turn it back to Matt, just to kind of see if there's any closing comments he wants to make. Just to kind of come back here on this presentation and with Kevin. Again, what we're hoping here is that you had a chance to be able to get an idea of the vision that Kevin was outlining where JSTOR is going, and listening to Matt on the responsibility aspect and development work on the platform and technology about how we're helping bring that vision forward. And our goal here too is to make sure that that's something that aligns for what you see as valuable and important for you as a publisher and a contributor. And we're going to talk in a little bit of detail in the next session, where we're going to hear from some of our colleagues that will talk about some of the survey information they're hearing from university presses and societies, and about what steps they're taking during these challenging times. And you'll be able to see the connection of what we're talking about over these last two sessions to some ways of supporting what those initiatives are that we're going to hear from some of your colleagues, and going through a little more in-depth conversations there. So Matt, I want to turn it back to you to see if you have any closing comments you want to make, and I'll let you know if there's any additional questions that come as you do.
Sure. I just want to thank everybody for your time. This is a very fast tour of a lot of things that are in motion. The teams are really excited to be improving things, and I feel like we are now combining things we've never really combined before in new ways. So there's a sort of new frontiers going on here. I am also at a more tactical level interested in how you all are using and experiencing the publisher reports that we've created, right? So we've automated them, but we're always interested in feedback of like, does it have what you need? It's like, great, it's good enough. I'll talk to you in a year when I need the next one, or you're using those on a more ongoing basis. Just interested in understanding if what we're providing you there is of value, and has anyone tried out some of the new things that we've offered there since the webinar that we gave?
Great, thank you, Matt. And we'll definitely let you know. And please, again, if you have comments and feedback that we can share with Matt, again, I've said this many times, but if you could put that over in that Slack channel, we can gather that and help give Matt the information that is important to him as he works within the teams and thinking about how to build in that support on the platform and the delivery of our data to you within our reports. Matt, one other follow-up detail that came, and if this would just kind of help us on probably answering the question. The earlier question that was text that I wasn't sure, I just got some more detail about it. It was about search regarding LaTeX, which is like a math markup language as a search option. And that was where that question was being asked. If you're still not sure of that, we'll have our technology teams follow up, but I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Thanks. I think we should follow up with our technical teams and see if it's something that's on the roadmap, or what would be the advantage of supporting it if we're not supporting it already. But I love suggestions like that because they indicate expert use cases, which are always where we learn a lot.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matt. And again, we'll post that follow-up information there for you. So Matt, thank you very much for participating, putting this information together to the publishers and contributors. I hope you found this helpful. Any additional information that you'd like to get from us and questions you have, engage with us. We'll make sure it gets there. And please enjoy the break here. And we're going to come back at 12:30. And again, I'll do an introduction there for Laura, Roger, and Judy, who will get some information and overview about some of the initiatives that publishers are currently taking. So thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.